The following is a presentation of iRacing.com motorsport simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. The road to the playoffs is just one race from now. Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to those of you watching on YouTube and iRacing Live. This is the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from Richmond Raceway, here in Henrico County, Virginia. My name is Cisco Scaramuza, and yes, we are in the hurry up, as you can tell tonight. No, James Pike, apparently you fell asleep. So that means it's me taking you through everything. Well, let's hurry up really quick, because let's run you through points. Right now, this is where we stand. Actually, no, that's not where we stand. That's where Super Speedway Cup stands. So you know what? We'll touch on that in a moment. But before we do that, we do want to take a moment and acknowledge the fact that tonight is the 16th anniversary of one of the most tragic events in the U.S. in the history of the United States. So we want to take a moment, step aside, and as we formally done, and tonight we do in remembrance, we play the national anthem tonight for those lost who lost their lives. We remember you. We will never forget you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
We welcome you back to Henrico County, Virginia, here for the running of the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. It's the Richmond Excitement 135, and well, we've managed to stir Mr. James Pike from his slumber over in the UK, so we'll get to him in a moment. But before we do, we're going to run through your points very quickly, because this is the last round before the playoffs for the 2017 RSR Full Throttle Cup Series Championship are in play. This is what the playoff grid looks like right now. Washington, Comstock, Eberhard, Jones, Rapallo, Freenash, Shed, Tice, Crowder are all locked in. Nick Silver, Dwayne Vincent, Brandon Bowie, Sean Casto, Shane Ewing, Ross Cato, and Lionel Callisto round out everyone who is currently in on points. And the point standings at the cut line go. Ross Cato and Lionel Callisto are safe, then 44 points back. Austin Coop, Sean Boundy in with a shot, as is Nelson Rivera. But that's all we have time for, so we're going to jump down and run you through your LSRTV starting grid here from Richmond, Virginia. Brandon Bowie's got the inside pull. To his outside, Ashton Crowder in the 27. Starting third is going to be Andrew Freenash in the 88. Fourth is going to be Carl Shed. Fifth is going to go to Lionel Callisto. Sixth to Dylan Jones. Seventh is going to go to David Comstock. Eighth is going to go to Gio Bramante. Ninth to Justin Lisenby. And rounding out your top 10 is William Hale. Starting 11th is going to be Sean Casto in the number 46. Austin Coop going to start 12th in the 53. 13th going to go to Nelson Rivera. 14th to Chris Hurlow. 15 is Nick Silver. Jason Cameron Jr., a newcomer to the series, going to start 16th. 17th going to go to Tanner Tellerico. 18th going to go to Mr. Super Speedway Cup Rod Flagg. 19th going to go to Dwayne Vincent. Rounding out your top 20, it's Shane Ewing. 21st going to go to Chris Murdoch, another newcomer. Randy Yoakum going to start 22nd. 23rd going to go to Ross Cato. 24th to John Abbott. 25th going to go to Gabe Wood. 26th going to go to Bruce Pearson. 27th, Doug Roth. 28th, Sean Bounty. 29th, Corey A. Wolf. Rounding out your top 30 is Douglas Wyatt. So, well, that's everybody in the field here tonight. Well, let's walk you through Richmond Raceway. Yes, that is a somewhat new name, I know, to me, and I know to James Pike, who will be joining us here shortly, also a new name to him as well. The Richmond International Raceway is formerly known, but Henrico County, Virginia, 0.75 mile race track, 8 to 14 degrees of banking in the turns, pit road speed 40 miles an hour, and we're going for 180 laps here tonight from Henrico County, Virginia. However, because it is under a mile, that does give us a little bit of breathing room, so I am going to see if I can catch my breath, and I'll see if I can catch up with Mr. James Pike, who's currently trying to get through security and get into the racetrack. I'll see if I can fire him up here. No, it doesn't look like he's quite in yet. Oh, there he is. He made it into security. James, Richmond, last race before the playoffs. Final thoughts?
I'll start by making sure that I stand with everybody at LSRTV when we say that this is first and foremost today to remember all of those lost in the tragedy that took place some 16 years ago in New York City, and echo your sentiments that you made right off the top of the broadcast, and just let everybody know that we are thinking of the families, the victims, all those affected by what took place on September 11th, 2001. And then beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. If you're not in, you have to win. If you don't win, you won't be in. The gap in the points is too big to make it happen.
It absolutely is, James. This is the last chance you can make it into the playoffs. We thank you all for joining us here on LSRTV. Pace car drops to the inside. Brandon Bowie leads the field to the green flag. The green flag is in the air, and we're racing from Richmond.
Pretty solid start for Bowie, who makes it up and to turn two all by himself, and all clear by about 2 car lengths. Side by side, you've got Crowner and Freenars fighting there for second. Shed in third, clear Callisto, who's trying to get fourth, but we've got a yellow flag to change things up right at the beginning. I see a lot of cars up high on the back straightaway, so I have a feeling that Doug Roth might have gotten into someone.
Yeah, something happened there. We're going to pull up the replay, see if we can figure out what exactly happened there. These guys were talking about these cars earlier. The track has really rubbered in, and we'll touch on that a little bit more, but things changing up here in the sim over the past week. We got an overhead shot right now at Doug Roth, and for the most part, it looks like, this looks like contact. Randy Yoakum actually looks like got hooked in the number 8. Doug Roth just had nowhere to go. So we'll take a look at the 8, figure out what happened there, James. But early contact, and a rubbin is already racing here at Richmond.
And I don't think that's much of a surprise either, because this place is much, much tighter than I think a lot of folks are willing to admit at the beginning, that you just don't have a lot of room here. And especially when the entire field is bunched up under yellow, or under green, and comes back to a restart rather. You know, something like this happens at the corner, you just don't really have much of anywhere to go, especially in corner entry. It's tight around Richmond.
It absolutely is, James, and we'll cut back to the live feed now. For the most part, everybody's staying out on the track, so no takers for pit road quite yet, but we have a moment now, so we can catch our breaths, introduce ourselves. Hello, everybody. My name is Cisco Scarmuz, alongside James Pike here in the LSRTV broadcasting tower, also pushing the buttons down here as well. So we have a moment now, we can catch our breaths, so we can talk a little bit more about this chase fight, James. You mentioned it right before we went green. You have to win to get in if you're not in. That points gap is too large for those guys to make it in on points alone.
So how desperate do you get then? There's your biggest question of the evening, because you look at the list of guys here, the Austin Coopes, the Sean Boundies, the Nelson Riveras, the Anthony DeBarros in particular. He's been so good on the short tracks. What do? Can you make it? Can you find a way in? We'll see what links they go to, but I just don't want to know in the back of my head just how wild it might get.
I will tell you one thing, James, something to note here. The 96, not in the server tonight, or the 99 rather, Anthony DeBarro was not able to make it, had prior commitments, so his shot at making it into the Championship 16, not going to happen. So that was who I thought might have a very good shot at doing it tonight. He is not in the field, so he is out of this thing 100%. Someone to note who's looking in, Mr. Austin Coop, has a lot of time on those short tracks, James. That's a driver who knows the short tracks well. He's had a lot of bad luck in this series, but I think if there's any track that he might be able to do something, it's going to be Richmond.
Because he absolutely loves this place. It is his favorite track on the calendar, and he's put a lot of time into trying to make his setup work well to get around here. So eyes up on Austin Coop as we get the green flag here on lap 6. Bowie takes off, gets another car length and a half or two away from Freenars and Crowder. Here still side by side, and everybody will go 2x2 through turn 2 and down the back straightaway.
Oh, and car already around. It's going to be the 31, or 37 rather, Gio Bramonti, and it's kicking off again. Gio was in not a good position. He was on the inside there, and I think he just got tagged. And we talked about the racing room at this track, James, and once again, it strikes. Too many cars going for too little space.
Well, in Bramonti's case, unless anything else happened, maybe a magic ghost or gremlin or ghoulie got him, he just overdrove corner exit and tried to get back to the throttle too early and ended up looping himself around. So pretty simplistic incident for the most part here, but a ton of damage to the front end of that 37 machine. I'm going to take a lengthy stay on pit road to get that car fixed up.
Yeah, absolutely no fast repairs for these guys, and nice call by you there, because I thought there was contact, but it was just the blur of light, so such is not the case. However, we have completed lap number 6 at this point. On lap number 7, right now Brandon Bowie continues to lead, Andrew Freenash, Ashton Crowder, Dylan Jones round out the top 4, and then Carl Shedd rounds out the top 5. So something to note, I did tease it a little bit, James, here, is the fact that we are operating on a new build. Something to note, one of the things that changed was the dynamic track system in the sim. It has a lot more of an effect than it did beforehand, and guys were talking about it during practice. The bottom line is already pretty rubbered up from practice. Guys have been using the outside to pass.
Which means you're going to have more grooves available to you earlier on in races than we did with the Season 2 build we had been running the last few months with. So I think, if anything, that'll stand to make the action track more exciting. I guess the question then becomes, how exciting do you really want it to be? Because at points we've seen drivers try and make 3 wide work here, but more often than not, it hasn't really been all that successful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James. And at this point, it's up to these guys. They'll have another shot at the restart here, so hopefully everybody can hold on to those cars, and they'll be good to go to the end here. But we mentioned that tonight is a very, very... well, it's 9/11. There's no other words to say it. So the 16th anniversary of 9/11, in recognition of that, and to remember those who have fallen, we will be going silent here from laps 9 through laps 11, which will include the restart here. So we will take a moment to remember those who we lost on that long day.
And a reminder once again that our thoughts here at LSRTV are with all of those that have been affected by 9/11 back on that day some 16 years ago and even to this day. So here's our race. Here's the best way we know of to honor the memory of those lost. And in this special race on such a tragedy-stricken day, a little bit lighter times for Brandon Bowie, who currently leads this race by about a car length and a half over Andrew Friedhaus in the 88 machine. Then Ashton Crowder sits in third. Those three have broken away to the tune of about a second over Carl Shedd, who sits in fourth. And then you've got maybe another car length and a half or two back to the 62 of William Hale. And from there, it just gets all knotted up, because Lionel Callisto's there, Justin Lisenby, Dylan Jones, Austin Koop, Chris Hurlow, Sean Casto, all together. Not really much room for anybody to get away at this point, because they're still stuck next to each other. They're still side by side, Cisco.
Yeah, they're still side by side, and that means nobody's going to be going very much anywhere. We talked about beforehand, James, the fact that that outside lane may be more preferred because there's not as much rubber up there, and we're starting to see that take effect. You see Coop down trying to follow the 31 of Lisenby up on the outside. Now he's going to look to the bottom side, so he's trying to go anywhere where he can find grip. You see the 87 of Hurlow behind him also trying to do the same thing. These guys searching around trying to find where that groove that they can make a pass is going to be. So while they're doing that, the lead is starting to shrink up a little bit, because Brandon Bowie hasn't really been able, James, to get that far away from Andrew Friedhaus.
Friedhaus is just kind of sitting there, and I don't think he's pressuring Bowie necessarily all that much, but he's just kind of lying in the shadows. And if Bowie slips up ever so slightly, the 88 will be right there to capitalize, because he's staying close enough to the rear of the 44. I noticed that on corner entry, Friedhaus is able to drive it in way deeper, maybe about a car length or two difference in the braking points between Bowie and Friedhaus. And I wonder if at some point that might be how Bowie finds a way, or rather Friedhaus finds a way around Bowie. So and we also can't forget Crowder, who's right there too. Just have to watch and see what happens up here, but they are definitely the class of the field, outrunning everybody here by about a tenth and a half to 2/10 per lap.
An absolutely exceptional job right now, James. And we talk about it's kind of becoming battle packs, which is, I know what you love to use, because that's kind of what we're dealing with. You got this group of three that are all kind of together. Crowder's kind of fallen off a little bit. The back bumper of Andrew Friedhaus. Actually, we're going to stay with that, because Friedhaus just looked to the inside of the leader. Nothing there that time, but something to note. He's looking around. I think he might have a slightly faster car. He just has to make it work. You can see the gap closing, so we'll keep an eye on that for a moment. That second battle pack, William Hale, Carl Shedd, Dylan Jones. We mentioned them earlier. They're all single file for the moment, as Friedhaus right now going side by side with the 27 of Crowder. And I'm going to hold on to that position is the 88 for now, at least, but the 27 is not done.
Comes back underneath, tries to find his way down to the bottom of the racetrack, and here comes Ashton Crowder. He's been quick, maybe slightly quicker than the 88 over the last few laps. He's decided now it's time to press, time to make things happen and get around Andrew Friedhaus so he can go hunt down Brandon Bowie if he wants, but unsuccessful on this endeavor, because I think Friedhaus promptly has decided to pick up the pace a little bit, and he will hang on to second for the moment.
The little bit of yellow fever breaks out at the beginning of this race, and then now we have a lot of green flag running. And keep in mind that Brandon Bowie is a person who is not automatically locked into this, James. He does not have a win this season. However, he's in on points at the moment. So at this point, we're talking about bonus points.
Always fun, right? Bonus points, bonus points, bonus points, bonus points, but they can make it
points, I guess, technically.
Playoff points? Oh, trouble on the back straightaway. A lot of cars around here. Austin Koop goes spinning. David Comstock has some damage. I'd try and see if anybody else has gotten caught up in it. William Hale went around too, so Let's take a look at the replay here, which will come up momentarily, and we'll find out the tale of this one. I wonder if the answer might be, and I think it is, William Hale and Lionel Kalisto getting together on corner exit that sent Hale around, and then Coop had nowhere to go. He clipped the rear of the 62 machine, and everybody else, it looks like, for the most part, got through. There were a few cars that did end up with some damage. I see Nelson Rivera's got some. He went all the way down to the pit wall to avoid what happened and nearly wrecked his own car in the process, trying to avoid all of the spinning ones in front of him. And David Comstock, I think, got a piece of damage as well. But Coop, really the big loser on that go-around, just didn't really have anywhere to go because Hale lost it right in front of him. He didn't have enough time to check up.
The good thing for Coop, though, is the fact that the car wasn't smoking when that happened, so he's not completely out of this. However, a lot of damage sustained to that 53, but I've seen him drive wrecked race cars before, so I'm not going to count him quite out of this yet. However, the race not going in the way of Austin Coop. However, the race is going in the way of Brandon Bowie because he just rolled off pit road with continuing to hold on to the lead. Andrew Freenosh is going to roll off second behind him. Then Dylan Jones has a great stop, and he's going to come out fifth, which is where he came in. But something to note, two cars did stay out. Rod Flagg in the number 23 Mr. Super Speedway Cup, he stays out, as well as Austin Coop, though Coop going to come in this time, so he'll surrender that position. So Flagg going to stay out here, and everybody else behind him has come down to take tires. So, I'm not sold on the idea, but if you're Rod Flagg and, well, you start in the back of the field, you're 18th, it's a strategy, right?
I think he's just trying to bring a little Friday night flavor to Monday nights here on LSRTV. At least if I didn't know any better, that's what I'd say Rod Flagg's plan is, but
never mind.
It was just for the yellow flag. Here comes Flagg into pit lane, so this race will go back under the control of Brandon Bowie when we get the green flag. Then you got Freenon second, then you got Jones third, Crowder fourth, and I believe Justin Lisenby is going to be in the fifth position unless I'm seeing things.
Yes. Actually, he's going to be starting sixth. Shed is going to be starting fifth right in front of him. But, you know, something that struck me there, James, was the fact Rod Flagg had Pontiac Grand Prix written on the front of his car. That's, it's a little bit of an ongoing gag in the Super Speedway Cup Series because Rod usually drives a Johnny Benson car. Now, that was a little bit of a throwback. You know what else was a throwback? Last week. Which, by the way, we're still doing voting for the throwback paint schemes. If you go to livesimracing.com, you can vote on your favorite RSR paint scheme. And the winner will be announced at the end of the race tonight. We'll be able to announce that. So go vote if you haven't already for your favorite throwback paint scheme from Darlington 2 weeks ago. There's still plenty of time to vote, so go do it.
Plenty of time and plenty of excellent paint schemes to choose from. I know I, technically speaking, was not on the broadcast that night, but got the chance to watch the replay once I put set foot and good feet down on English soil, and was thoroughly impressed with the diversity of paint schemes that were thrown out that night and the history that was represented across so many eras in the sport from the drivers in the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. So, in the meantime, we're going to get set for the restart, which will come on lap 32. Brandon Bowie leads them back across the start-finish line into green once more. Freenar's going to be stuck behind everything a little bit, and Dylan Jones might just get the drive to get to third here if he can get the run that he needs to get past Freenar's. He's got the preferred racing line as they go through 3 and 4. We'll try and take second away as they come back down the front straight.
A little bit of rubbing there between the corporate teammates. Freenar's on the outside's gonna make it work, dives it way into turn one, very deep, and that's gonna allow Jones to pull right back in this fight. They're too wide behind him, nowhere for the 27 to Crowder to go. Now he's gonna jump to the inside of the 45 of Shed, and he'll try and make it stick down there, and his teammate right behind him. You can see the two drill spill cards. They got the logos on there, James. It makes it easier for us to tell who the teammates are, and well, if you don't know who the Aegis drivers are, well, look for the Aegis logos. There's about 5 billion of them out there.
is just with lots of representation between the main team and the Power Tech group. We know they work very closely and work very well together. So Shed, in the meantime, though, comes across the stripe in the 5th position at the moment. So he's the meat, I guess, of the drill spill sandwich between Crowder and Lisenby, who currently sit in 4th and 6th. Freenards has found his way up the 2nd, though, around Dylan Jones. So we'll see now if he can press on and get to Brandon Bowie. We saw him pressing Ashton Crowder earlier on before we got our most recent yellow flag, and had a pretty quick machine for the most part. Just didn't have the track position, I think, more than anything else to try and get the lead. But as we start winding through this race and getting a decent green flag run in, Brandon Bowie is really going to have to worry about the 88 car, because that Andrew Freenar's machine is coming, and coming quickly, to the tune of about half a tenth to a full tenth per lap, and he's there on the rear bumper of the 44 machine.
Yeah, he made up a ton of time just going through turn 4 right there, so look out. Andrew Freenar is on the move, and he is closing. He's going to jump to the inside again. He's found some speed down there on the bottom, James, and these guys were searching around up top side, but I think the 88 is committed to that bottom line. He's been able to make a lot of speed. He's gotten the apex just right. Problem is, Bowie just has a really good exit off the corner because he's diamonding a little more than what the 88 is.
It's slight. It's not a lot, but you can definitely see it on corner exit. And for the moment, I think that's why Bowie still has the lead, because Freenars is definitely entering the corner better, and I'd say getting through the center of the corner a little bit better as well. So something to keep an eye on here, especially as we go through this run. And if it stays green and we start really wearing down the tires, well, of course, as soon as I say that, we get a yellow flag here on the racetrack. So we're going to go under caution for another moment tonight at Richmond.
And it may have been, I'm not really sure what that one was for. I see some damage to the 8 of Randy Yoakum. He's letting a couple cars by, so I'm going to fire up the replay camera, see if maybe that's where the incident was. But either way, yes, it was. The yellow flag did fly. I see smoke out the back of the 8. So we'll take a look at that. Yoakum was up on the top side, and below him was the 62 of William Hale. And Hale's already been through the wars a little bit. Yoakum's up on the top side. Hale gets a little bit loose underneath him. Thought he was clear and just turns dead right into the 8. So Spotter did not clear the 62, and Hale thought he was clear. And around goes the 8 of Randy Yoakum, and the long night continues for both of those drivers, because I'm pretty sure the 62 is going to eat the claim caution for that one as well. John Abbott, nowhere to go, takes out the cone, somehow manages to squeak for the most part through there, I think. I'm not sure how he held on to that Nesquik machine, but a great job by John Abbott to minimize the damage that could have happened right there, James.
Could have been a lot worse, but yes, a very long night already, and we've barely run any laps in this race. It's just gotten longer for both Yoakum and Hale, and interesting to note, I think, is that unless he decides to come in within the next few laps, while everybody else came down pit road, Nelson Rivera stayed out. So if he manages to hang out up there when we get back to green, Rivera will be your leader. And then Dylan Jones won the battle off pit road and was joined by the 46 of Sean Castell and the 42 of David Comstock. Bowie, it looks like, was only the 4th car to come off pit road.
And that's because, Mr. James Pike, the first 3 cars off pit road, Dylan Jones, Sean Castell, and David Comstock, took 2 tires. Everybody else behind them, 4 fresh ones. So Bowie, Freenash, Crowder, everybody behind him, they're all on 4. Jones, Castell, and Comstock think they can make it on 2. What do you think?
Interesting at this point. I think I would have taken the gamble a little bit earlier and just tried to capitalize on the fact that we have had a lot of cautions to begin this race. But, you know, with the way this thing has gone, you never know if this next run might be the one that becomes the long green flag run, or if we end up getting another yellow within 5 to 10 laps where everyone pits and you can really claim the track position by getting 4 tires and getting back in cycle. It's a gamble that you take, but, you know, if you really want to start making up positions, and I think of Castell and Comstock in particular, who have been mired in traffic for a good chunk of this race, why not go ahead and take the gamble now? And if it doesn't work, you still have the time later on to make it all back up and drive your way back to the front of the field if you can get the setup right.
Question is, though, James, you have to drive your way through the field at Richmond, which is not the easiest track to do that. It's already known as kind of a one-groove racetrack, and with the rubber building, that's in even tall order. If you're someone like, well, Brandon Bowie, it's going to be a little bit easier because, well, you only have 4 cars in front of you. But if you're somebody like a Carl Shed who is running kind of in that 5th position, you're now 9th. That's a lot more work that you're going to have to do.
So you would think, but if we go green, then you will see the front 4 begin to lose some pace because those tires will not be as quick as the tires underneath the cars of the drivers who got to replace all 4 on this round of pit stops. They will slide back. It then becomes a battle of not necessarily running from, say, 9th to 1st if you're Carl Shed, but just 5th to 1st as those 4 on 2 tires, Rivera, Jones, Casto, and Comstock, by the way, fade because those tires will not make it a full green flag run without having some sort of give. As the pace guard comes off, Nelson Rivera will lead them back to green here as we begin to work lap 46, as sentences become a very, very tricky thing for me to say. Rivera, though, able to get away by about a car length ahead of everybody else. Then Casto and Jones go side by side. Jones got a really good run off of turn 2. Should be able to clear Casto, move Dylan Jones to 2nd as they go through 3 and 4.
An excellent job by Jones to clear the 46 there. So Jones flying through this field on those 2 tires. 46 and the 42 scrapes the wall a little bit. Sparks coming from the 42 of David Comstock. They'll go side by side. Bowie gonna get right up to the side of the 42 JT Plax machine. Comstock dives it back into turn 3. 44 looking to the inside. He's gonna get off a little bit, make sure not to hook the quarter panel. David Comstock hangs on for the moment. Now the 46 going hunting Sean Casto to the inside of Nelson Rivera, the only car out there on old tires. He's going to lose that position. The next one in line, Comstock, looking to capitalize. Meanwhile, right behind him, a little bit of a battle. Shed jumping to the inside of Lisenby. Lisenby stuck on the high side. He's going to try and make the outside line work. It's a very good run, but Carl is still there. And oh, look who's jumped into this picture. The Hot Wheels entry, Nick Silver.
So Dylan Jones to the race lead as Nelson Rivera begins to fade with the lack of any tires whatsoever. Casto's up to 2nd, Comstock 3rd, Rivera already back to the 5th spot because Bowie has managed to get around that 7 machine, and Freenars is next on that list. He'll try and clear the 7 as they go through turn 2 and come down the back straightaway. And then you've got Ashton Crowder, Justin Lisenby, Carl Shed, and the aforementioned Nick Silver all lying in wait here as we roll through the laps. It should be a struggle now, I think, for Rivera to really hang on to spots because that car just does not look like it's rotating on quarter entry at all.
It's moving around like he's got sand caught under the wheels. I'll tell you what, James, that 7 car, like you said, not happy driver, not happy car. It's going to be a long night for Nelson Rivera if this goes green, but they're too wide right behind him. Carl Shed going at it with the 31 of Lisenby, continuing to, and I mentioned Nick Silver, he's jumped into this battle in the McDonald's entry. McDonald's Hot Wheels, I dig it. Ashton Crowder, meanwhile, looked like he was going to jump to the inside. Not going to happen. The battle in front of these guys, Brandon Bowie, David Comstock is on once again. Comstock has a really good run off of 4. That's really been where he's been able to save his race position. Actually, Freena's going to capitalize a little bit on that. To the inside of the 44 goes the 88. And the 88 going to try and take away that position. He's making those fresh tires work. Not on the alternate strategy tonight is the 88 car.
Finally has gotten his chance. He's been waiting for a moment to run down and run next to Brandon Bowie, I think, all race. And now Freenars has finally got a moment to try and get around the 44 and gain that track position. He's been quicker for a good majority of this race. It has not been by much, to be fair, but faster than Brandon Bowie and faster enough that you figure if he gets clear of Bowie, he should have a pretty good shot at running down the other 3 drivers that would be ahead of him. For the moment, though, Bowie has managed to hang tough he'll be able to come back in front of the 88 machine and should hang on to the 4th spot for a moment. And I almost wonder if that made Freenar's check up, because here comes Ashton Crowder in the 27 machine underneath the 88 car, trying to go grab the 5th position away in turn 3.
And Crowder, keep in mind, our latest winner, he won at Darlington 2 weeks ago, secured his spot into the playoffs for the championship because he was in the top 25 in points, raced his way in there, James. And as a result, he's one of the finalists here into these playoffs. He's just going for those bonus points, those playoff points, oh so precious. We talk about playoff points. Think about someone like Martin Truex Jr. All the races he's won, all the difference the playoff points make. He basically is a buy into the second round of the playoffs. No one really has that luxury because these guys are in pairs. I will say, though, the playoff points very crucial going into that first round.
Very, very crucial, and really what's done it for Truex this season. I mean, the race wins have helped, but it's been the stage wins where I think he's got, what, like 19, something like that. I'd have to go look at the number officially, but that's really where Truex has made his gains. And well, we don't have any sort of system like that in the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. I think the point remains that if you can have a dominant car in the middle of a race, it will say something about your ability to perform at the end of the race, where you can go get the race win and you can go get the bonus points for that race win. They will be so crucial once we get to Chicagoland next week and the playoffs actually begin.
Yep, and Chicagoland, a 1.5 mile track, vastly different to the Richmond Raceway and all the short track characteristics it has. But I'll tell you what, Dylan Jones has put on the turbo boost and he is gone, because Sean Casto, 1.3 is the gap right now between the leader and second place at the moment. Sean Casto in the bright red 46. We'll see if we can get that fixed up here maybe during a yellow. But either way, the 42 of David Comstock also not too far behind the 46 either, but he hasn't been able to go anywhere. And I think that's just the tires talking at this point. The guys who have been fighting, James, they've worn out the good out of their tires. So at this point, they're just starting to accordion. You see the accordion effect behind the 42. You see got the 44, the 88, the 27. They're all right there knocking on the door. However, Dylan Jones got through traffic and he pulled away, so he's saving those tires.
How big could that be if this goes all the way under green and you have all these guys who just have absolutely no rubber underneath them because they burned it all off trying to fight their way to the front of the field, and Jones will still have something left underneath his 11 machine and might have a chance to run some really good laps at the end of what could be a long green flag run here. And I think it finally is shaping up to be one, because you look through the top 10 and yes, you might have one or two cars together trying to fight for position, but for the most part, everybody's relatively strung out as Ashton Crowder takes another peek underneath Freenar's, trying to grab the 5th position away. I think he may get a shot at it coming off of 4 to get it, but no, he got loose. He got arrow loose coming out of turn 2 underneath the 88 machine, so he'll slide right back in line behind Andrew Freenar's, and we'll see if Crowder can regroup and come back and make another run on the 88 to get a top 5 spot.
Yeah, and the battle we were also watching there was the 42 tried to go the inside of Sean Casto, wasn't happening, and as a result they won 3 wide for about 2 seconds, and that's all it took for Brandon Bowie to jump to the inside of Comstock. Comstock now in the freight train lane if he's not careful. He's got to make sure to jump back in single file. Bowie meanwhile going on the hard offensive, jumping to the inside of Casto. It's going to get a little bit close there, but they'll hold on to it. No contact there, and Casto trying to fight for his life on the outside.
Casto trying to hang on to the position. Meanwhile, Bowie trying to poke a hole underneath the 46, which I have a feeling a lot of guys would like to follow through, but Bowie got really loose coming off of the corner. So just about kills that battle for now, and David Comstock will be the beneficiary of all of this. He'll be the one that goes up as they try and go 2 wide, nearly went 3 wide for a moment, but Bowie didn't get a good run off of turn 2 either, and that gave Ashton Crowder the chance to try and get around the 44.
Yeah, it got really close there between those guys, and meanwhile Comstock all of a sudden, he's back by Sean Casto and he's gone. So Andrew Freenar's now going to look. Freenar's going to jump to the inside, maybe a Sean Casto, not going to happen. So for Brandon Bowie, it all went it all went to heck there for a moment because he just dropped out of this fight completely. He's now going to get past Freenaz there to be able to get back into this battle. And meanwhile, David Comstock trying to check out. And he's in the express checkout line right now because he just opened up a good 4 car lengths right there on Casto just coming out of turn 2.
And there's the benefit of getting away and getting clear of battles on track. And we see the way Casto's beginning to stack up everybody here from 5th on back. Couldn't tell if he totally threw a block there on Freenaz going into the corner or whether or not that was just him running his line. But regardless, that's what's happened. That's the effect that we're seeing on the next 3, even 4 and 5 cars if you count Justin Lisenby and Nelson Rivera. Side by side, though, once again for 4th and 5th. Here comes Bowie underneath Casto, trying to get a decent run. The 44 with a good head of steam on the bottom. Can he make it stick this time? Oh, no. Oh, they might take a 3 wide. Oh, it was close. It was really, really close. But Bowie was able to get clear of Casto. So Brandon Bowie now up to 3rd. It then becomes incumbent upon Andrew Freenaz to go try and get the 4th position away, but they found a hole underneath Casto. The floodgates have opened, and now here comes everybody on fresh tires around the 46, or at least that's what they'd like to do. And I have a feeling that if he gets pinned up there, he may be going back towards the top 10, not the top 5, very quickly.
Yeah, well, we're not in Martinsville, James, but the railroad tracks are in play right now because the 46, unless he could somehow maybe get the 88 a little bit loose, if Andrew gets a little bit loose on the inside, he dives it down. He's going to clear the 46 at least through the corner. Sean's going to have nowhere to go. I mean, at this point, no one's going with him to the top side. Everyone keeps jumping down to that inside. That's where they're preferring the line at the moment. The battle continues, though. Sean Casto putting up everything he can. He's on the old tires. It's old versus new tires, and I'll tell you what, Sean Casto lasting a lot longer than I think anyone expected him to on the outside with those old tires. He will not be denied, rather. He's going to open up about half a fender on the 88 there. As lap traffic down to the inside, it's the 33, it looks like, of Doug Wyatt. He's going to jump to the apron there, so no problem for these guys. But that was enough for the 88 just to get out of the throttle a little bit, and 46 somehow holds on to that position.
For now, I think the question is for how much longer can he do it? It has been an impressive run under this green flag run in particular for Casto, but at some point the tire wear will get to him, and it looks like that might be now because Ashton Crowder has managed to get around him on the outside, and he'll come off of turn 4 and grab the position. And Freenaz might be able to do it on the outside too, as I think Douglas Wyatt actually got into the wall coming out of turn 4, nearly stacked up a few cars towards about the 15th position in this field. But all good for the moment, no yellow flag yet. Crowder, though, clear of Casto. Freenaz has now gotten clear of Casto, and that will be Justin Lisenby in the 31, who now works the outside of the 46, and they all have finally found their way around Sean Casto, but not before Brandon Bowie has opened up almost a second on the drivers who got caught behind the 46 during that last handful of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean Casto finally losing those positions. He's now going to battle a little bit with Nelson Rivera. So Rivera managing to hold on to that top 10 pike, and I think that's just down to the fact he was able to cool those tires off. That gap between the packs kind of closed up a little bit, so allowed those guys to get a little bit of save in their tires a little bit. So good job for those guys, at least to cool those tires down. Nelson Rivera stopped the bleeding for the moment. Now maybe looking to advance a position on Sean Casto. So really good job by the Verizon Fios Chevrolet. Meanwhile, a little bit of shenanigans just happened because Brandon Bowie just dropped from about 3/10 off David Comstock to about a second. What on earth happened?
Believe that he might have just gotten loose and just had to check it up and save it. It's happened a few times, even within this run for the 44 machines, so wouldn't be surprised, and especially as the handle goes away on these cars as we progress through this green flag run, would not shock me at all that that's the case. And I think you're seeing it reflected now in the way he's changed his racing line up ever so slightly. Bowie is now running off the yellow line a little bit more and kind of towards the middle of the racetrack more than anything else, just managing to apex these corners at the very, very end, right on corner exit. But he doesn't have that car pinned down to the bottom the way he used to, and I think that's just proof of just how loose the 44 machine is. I have a sneaking suspicion he'll try and throw around a wedge here on this next pit stop.
I think that, and also I think it helps if I realize that the 44 was actually fairly close to where it was beforehand. I was looking at Abbott thinking that was Bowie, so a little bit of a miscommunication there for me. But I'll tell you one thing, Ashton Crowder doing a good job as well leading Frinas around the 10. Everybody spaced out for the first time today, at least through the top 10. You mentioned it earlier, James, but we can go a little bit searching for a couple battles. How about Chris Hurlow and Nick Silver going at it? The two Fords right there, the Cheez-Its entry and the Hot Wheels entry going at it.
Those two tied together along with Nelson Rivera, who is right in front of all of them. So, pretty good battle there, all within about 2 or 3 tenths of a second and within about maybe 4 car lengths. So, you've got a car length space combined between those 3 cars. It's a pretty tight bunch through there. Carl Shedd also about a car length, 2 car lengths ahead of Rivera. So, he in theory is kind of part of this as well. And then maybe you make a division to Sean Casto, who has his 46 car hanging around in the 7th position after he decided to go 2 tires here in his most recent round of pit stops. And what happened to Shedd there? Just went way up the racetrack, and I guess he changed up his line or something. I couldn't tell exactly what happened, but he went shooting up towards the wall in turn 3, and I think that gave maybe a car length or 2 back to the likes of Rivera and Hurlow and Silver. And oh, by the way, as I look at this field and I look just a little bit further back, got caught up in an incident very early on in this race, but Austin Coop doing a respectable job to battle back to the 12th position, which is where he currently sits, is about a second behind Nick Silver. So he'll try and make that gap up over the course of the green flag run, and will need a victory. Nothing less will get him into the playoffs, but Coop with a respectable run after the really, really difficult start that he had to the race tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, Coop's doing that with a little bit of damage to that car. And also, I think he has some of the oldest tires out on track right now. William Hale, the only one else out there with 24. Also, Doug Roth with 28. John Abbott on 78 lap old tires. So there's shout out to Abbott. But Coop with the oldest tires by far with everyone else in the, actually no, that's pit time. Oh, it's a long day afterwards. Never mind.
Life is a beautiful thing, you know? I'll tell you what, life is a really beautiful thing for Dylan Jones, who currently is out front by a 1.5 seconds over David Comstock, and then you've got Brandon Bowie there, another 1.5 seconds back and change, almost 2 seconds now. It's 3.4 back to Dylan Jones for Bowie, and then 2 to Comstock. And then side-by-side battle, guess who? Andrew Freenar's Ashton Crowder working on each other for the 4th position. I think it might be Freenar's is at the line, but they're side-by-side going into turn 1, so that battle's not over just yet.
No, it's not. Freenar's going to jump to the inside there. He'll get around Crowder, or at least secure that position for the moment. But Crowder ain't done. Jumping to the inside. The crossover move going into turn number 3. He's going to try and make it work. Brandon Bowie right in front of these guys, able to pull away a little bit. They're side by side across the line. The 88 had it at the line that time, but Crowder going to dive it into turn number 1, and he's going to make it work. The 88 got a little tight going through the corner. Now Crowder had the nose advantage, but the 88 gets the cutback on the outside. They're still going at it, and they'll be side by side like this for a while.
They'll go side by side. We figure someone here will end up making things happen and grabbing the position. But at this moment, we're already past lap 90, so it's time to go through our iRacing Midway race break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, USAC, and more. Dylan Jones, your leader here at Richmond as we work lap 97. David Comstock currently sits in the 2nd position. Brandon Bowie runs in the third spot for the moment. Andrew Farinar sits in fourth. Ashton Crowder holds down the fifth spot at the moment. Then it's his teammate from the drill spill, Justin Lisenby, in sixth. Sean Castro on the old tires doing a nice job, hanging tough in seventh. Carl Shend in the eighth spot right now. Ninth is the 87 of Chris Hurlow, 987. Funny little number play right there. Funny how that works out. And then Nick Silver has got the 24 machine in the final spot in the top 10 in 10th.
Yeah, then 11, Nelson Rivera currently running. Remember, he's the only car that stayed out on old tires. 12th right now, Austin Coop clawing his way back through the field. Tanner Tallarico's sitting 13th. 14th going to go to Gabe Wood at the moment. Sean Boundy running 15th. 16th to newcomer Jason Cameron Jr. 17th to Corey Wolf. 18th going to go to Dwayne Vincent. 19th to the returning William Hale. Remember, he had that accident earlier on, trying to salvage something out of tonight. And rounding out your top 20, Shane Ewing.
Ross Cato runs in the 21st spot. Last car in the lead lap is the 22nd position car of the 23 of Rod Flagg. Doug Roth is one lap down, sits in 23rd at the moment, as is Bruce Pearson, another newcomer. He runs in 24th. Lionel Kalisto is 2 laps down in the 25th position. John Abbott 6th in 26th. 27th is the 33 of Douglas Wyatt. And then the final 3 cars all running into trouble and on pit road or out of this race already. Chris Murdoch, Randy Yoakum, and Giovanni Bramonti run at 28th, 29th, and 30th. And that concludes your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. And you can do that once again by visiting iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. That lead for Dylan Jones, while we went through the midway race break, grew by another second. So instead of 1.5 seconds, it is now 2.5 seconds from the rear bumper of the 11 machine to the front bumper of the 42. A little bit of lap traffic in between them, as well as Doug Roth sits there in the middle. And then a battle here now developing for the second spot. Andrew Farinas has caught David Comstock. The 88 now works underneath the 42. And I don't think Comstock's going to make it that much of a well, maybe he will make it more of a contest, or at least try to. But Farinas, with the preferred lane, should have this position within the next lap or two.
Yeah, Farinas has a very good line on that bottom side at the moment. And coming along with is the lap down car of Lionel Kalisto, I believe, on newer tires, because he is flying through this field. And that's the question I was just going to start thinking about, James. When do you come down pit road, and how long do you wait on those tires to do it? We're very spread out at this point. The old tires are just going to be hurting you from here.
At this point, but don't think there's going to be much of anything done until Dylan Jones comes down to pit road. That's really the only thing I see happening here, and the only thing I think that makes sense, unless someone beats him to the punch. We can start thinking about the window here, because it is close to being open, if not open already. But I guess it's on some level you end up gambling and trying to beat Jones to the punch. Because if you can short pit him, you will gain some time and get the undercut, as you like to say. And that will be good for a few tenths, even a full second, second and a half, or if you play it right. But if Jones manages to come down early enough, then it's all over, and you're just playing damage control more than anything else at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to talk about that lead gap. There's 2 lap cars battling for a position right now between Andrew Farinas and Dylan Jones. That's how massive of a gap that is. Rod Flagg had to get way out of the gas pedal that time. He's going to lose not only the position to Lionel Kalisto, he's also going to lose it to Doug Roth. It looks like a possible taker. Yes, it is. Brandon Bowie. Ding, ding, ding. Time to come down pit road. The 44's in.
So there's the answer. Brandon Bowie is the first one to make moves, so he will come down at a very, very, very slow, I believe it might be 35 or 40 miles an hour. I don't remember off the top of my head, but to say the least, it's very slow for all of these drivers, and you crawl to your pit stall more than anything else. But Bowie gets in cleanly, so We'll keep our eyes peeled and see if anything else comes about of that, or if it's a clean pit stop. In the meantime, I'm just running through the field, looking and trying to find people that might be part of this bunch and might come down pit road next. No takers yet amongst the top 5, so they will all stay out for a little while longer, which means that Bowie here, if he plays this right, really might end up being the big winner.
Oh, if Bowie can get the undercut and get it correct, this is going to be huge for that 44, and he could make up a ton of time. The problem is he's going to have to hold off Dylan Jones. Thing is, though, we've seen it done before, James. Think back to the pro race, or the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series a couple of years ago of Ryan Lowe and Andrew Fash going at it, old tires versus new tires. So, well, either way, that's going to be the battle for those guys. So it's going to be interesting to see how much time can the 44 make on those new tires. How much traffic is he going to have to deal with, because he's got a lot of cars in front of him right now just on board at the moment. The 34, the 13, they're all going to go by the wayside here, because that 44 is going to be on turbo boosters here.
Turbo boosters. I like that thought. And you're not wrong, because you will be running laps at a significantly faster pace than anybody else on the racetrack. So now, to some degree, this is damage control on the amount of time that Brandon Bowie will gain on you, at least on the front end. And the question is whether or not you want to match his strategy or try and set yourself up better for the end of this race, because we know that Bowie will give some of that time back as his tires begin to fade toward the end of this event a little bit later on, especially in comparison to everybody else that's still out on the racetrack at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bowie now, you can see the 53s in front of him, and as well, oh, he's going to have to go way to the high side there to get around Coop, also the one at Tanner Tellerico as well. So that's going on over there. Meanwhile, a couple cars down pit road. It's the drill spill boys. Ashton Crowder and Justin Lisenby are in. Right side's going up, left side's going up. They'll be heading out of pit road here pretty soon, and Brandon Bowie already heading in to turn number 1, so he's already gotten far past these guys already.
I wonder how close he'll get to Dylan Jones. That's really what I'm intrigued to see, and I'm watching and waiting and trying to see if anybody else on this racetrack might be following suit and staying out with the 11 machine, and who might come down and come in and try and get tires. We know Carl Shedd and Sean Castor are still out there on track. Nick Silver is, as well as is Chris Herlow. And here comes Dylan Jones, because the 11 machine now down pit road. So I have a feeling that should force just about everybody else onto the pit straight here at Richmond for 4 tires and fuel, because you just can't afford to lose time to him. And now here comes Farinorz. He comes down to make his stop, so he immediately responds to what Jones did, and now it's on David Comstock, who assumes the race lead. We'll see when the 42 comes down pit road next.
What the 42 could do here, James, is depending how much fuel's left in these cars, he could stay out for the rest of it and try and hope there's going to be a caution. The problem is we're pretty spread out right now, but you know who's someone we could ask about fuel strategy is the guy who was in these cars not that long ago. We welcome into the broadcast booth here so I can actually get a breath here in Edgewise. Chris Murdoch, what are we looking at for fuel for these guys?
You're looking at fuel, and then you're looking at tires here, guys. Tires are such a huge part, especially with how that track is. You can see David Comstock pulling it in. He almost lost it coming down the pit road. Fuel is so important here. You can make it quite a ways on fuel here at Richmond. So it's not too hard to conserve fuel. I'm more looking at tires more than fuel, especially with how tight and then loose the car gets as the run goes on.
Really interesting stuff here. And an interesting perspective more than anything else, Chris. Can you speak a little bit also on how this racetrack is racing for these guys at the moment? And have you noticed anything in particular with the new build that's changed the game here and changed the way you attack this racetrack?
Well, one thing I had to do for me, James, is I really had to learn how to run the high line. You'll see people running that second groove and then diming it down to bottom. And I was talking with Hale and Coop before the race, and they were really talking about diamond cutting the entry to the corners to try to save those tires. So it's really changed on how you save tires, because you have to really arc it late. And you'll see a lot of these drivers, now that they're getting back on here with fresh tires, they'll try to take what they've learned from those green flag pit stops and try to save the tires just a little bit more. So we'll have to see how things progress, but you know, these cars are such a blast here at Richmond. The car just wasn't where I wanted it to be tonight, but happy to join you guys up in the booth.
Happy to have our Ohioan and our Ohio River Valley representative on the LSRTV team back up with us in the booth, and it's a fun time here at Richmond whenever you can get everybody together and get a good run-in going, and especially on a night like this where we remember and honor all of those lost in the tragedies of September 11th, 2001. Glad to have you on board tonight, and glad to bring everybody back here towards the race as we work lap 126 on the racetrack. Starting to get down to it here because we don't have that much more time, with 180 laps on the schedule, getting down to 50 to go. So getting pretty tight here. And I think for Sean Casto, Nick Silver, Sean Boundy, William Hale, Doug Roth, Brandon Bowie, actually no, Bowie came down pit road. So there's your interesting answer above all else, because Bowie came down before anybody else before tires and fuel. He managed to short pit everybody, and once this cycles through, provided we don't have a yellow flag, it's going to be Brandon Bowie that is in control of this race and in the lead.
Well, that is, of course, if Dylan Jones doesn't track him down, which is what Jones just did to Doug Roth. That was a pass for position by the 43. So Dylan Jones up to P6, and problem is, Mr. Bowie better not look in the mirror too much, because there's only one car between him, and Dylan Jones is on the way over. So, well, James, at this point, if you're Brandon Bowie, you start thinking, well, I may not have the tire advantage necessarily. I got to start saving now before Dylan gets to me.
I think you were saving even before this, if that was your plan all along, because he came in significantly earlier. I'd say about 5 or 6 laps before anybody else managed to even consider coming down pit road. So if you're playing this correctly, I think if you're Bowie, you were saving tires as soon as you came off of the racetrack, and you're saving tires as much as you can here throughout these last 50 laps. It'll be tight because we know how good Dylan Jones has been, but it's certainly doable, and it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, especially with how, you know, how many ways you can get around a car. You can't really get around on that bottom. You have to kind of work the high side, as you can see all these drivers doing. So if he can just hold that bottom line and try to play that defensive line, once Dylan Jones does get him, he may be able to hold off that 11. But as you mentioned, that 11 is so good at strategy and able to save his stuff, so it won't be that hard now as he's trying to get around the 21, it looks like, and the 21 just moves over for the 11. So they're now almost there, James.
Yeah, Jason Cameron Jr. wanting no part to play in the battle between the leaders that might be shaping up here before too long, because Jones is coming. And more than anything else, and anything that you mentioned, Chris, it has been the outright speed of the 11 machine that has been most impressive tonight. Nobody has been faster than Dylan Jones here. Once we got these cars really going on a long green flag run under regular racing conditions, the 11 has been the class of the field, and I think it's a matter of when he gets the rear bumper of Brandon Bowie, not if.
When he gets there, James. And the bad news for Bowie was he got very high just one lap ago going through 1 and 2. So at this point, Dylan Jones is starting to munch away that gap. And pretty soon, Brandon Bowie is going to have a rear view mirror full of the Aegis Ford Fusion. And wow, it's not taking very long, because Dylan just made up about a car length just going through 1 and 2. He's right on board with the 11 right now. You can see the gap visually get smaller. He gained a ton of time as well through 3 and 4, and he's going to be there knocking on the door, I'd say, in about 3 laps, not even.
I'd say, and it helps that the car is already a particular shade of gray, but the shark fin is up on the top of the 11 machine. He is coming. trying to come right after Brandon Bowie and go get this race lead. And the gap is already down to maybe about 2.5 car lengths, if that. Here comes Brandon Bowie in the 44 machine, trying to do everything he can to hold off Dylan Jones, but Jones just keeps on finding ways to shave away the margin between the 11 and the 44. We should have a battle for the race lead, I think, coming in just a few laps.
Yeah, and you can see them, or Dylan working past that 22 machine of Bruce Pearson, and that could also play in a huge factor because there aren't that many, you know, once you get up there towards lap traffic, you can basically use them as picks, and you got to think that Dylan Jones or maybe even Brandon Bowie is thinking about that as they're approaching William Hale now. Is he going to try to use one of those lap cars as picks to maybe either keep them or vice versa for Dylan Jones to use one of those lap cars to get by Brandon Bowie? So you can definitely use all these cars around you to your advantage.
You can, but the problem is that eventually you are going to find clear racetrack once again, and there's a decent patch once they clear Sean Bounty, who is next in line to go a lap down as the leaders make their way through the field. Well, because I'm really, really good at things, because I keep on forgetting that we have some drivers who've yet to pit because I'm just being stupid and silly. So forgive me, but Bounty now slides back here. So technically speaking, Sean Casto is the only one that has yet to come down pit road, but and Nick Silver. Nick Silver is the other one there as I look at timing and scoring. So those two, but of the drivers who have come down pit road, Bowie leads the group. So there's a good mind warp on you when you sit down and really think about it and realize that Brandon Bowie, even though we've been talking about it being for the race lead, it was only the provisional lead because this is just for the lead of the drivers who already have come down pit road. And we forget that Casto and Silver are hanging out there on the racetrack still.
And I'll tell you what, James, if you need to get up to break out the timing, you know where you could go for some timing?
How about our friends at Joel Real Timing? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which gives us the chance to remind all of you that coverage of tonight's RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series event from Richmond, presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download for free or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. And if we were to look at our Joel Real Timing lap timing stats and the gigantic sheet of lap times, we'd see that Dylan Jones has been quicker than Brandon Bowie, and I think he finally will have the spot over the 44. So now it's just a matter of running down Silver and Casto. It's about 2 seconds from Bowie to Silver at the moment, and then Casto is another second and change beyond the 24. So not too much longer now for Jones to try and make things happen. And if you're Casto and Silver, boy, do you want a yellow flag in the worst way right now.
That you do, James. And now that they've been battling for a little bit between the 11 and the 44, that 88 machine has been able to get up, and as he gets a little bit loose coming across the start-finish line, I was going to say he's right up on the back bumper of Brandon Bowie, but he has lost a lot of that time now. So you got to watch that exit of turn 4, because I know I was fighting it pretty much all night. So you got to watch that exit of turn 4 because it'll bite you if you're not paying attention. But talking about Casto and Silver, they're just getting passed up by a whole bunch of cars. Nick Silver especially just now getting passed by Brandon Bowie. So you definitely need a caution flag if you're the 46 and the 24, because you're just going to start dropping back.
That would be the hope, and it isn't even a battle for the race lead. Dylan Jones goes right underneath Sean Casto. So Jones back to the point, Bowie in second at the moment, then Farinar's third if he can clear to the 46, which it looks like he should be able to do with relative ease as they come down the back straightaway. So 1 and 2 and 3 all now on the regular pit scheme, where they came down some 20 laps ago and all got tires and fuel. It is Dylan Jones, though, who is weaving his way through lap traffic, but trying to really put some distance between himself and Brandon Bowie and the rest of this field to go claim another race victory in the 2017 season.
Yeah, and Dylan Jones at this point put on the cruise control because, holy cow, it's almost a second already to Brandon Bowie. Andrew Freenars, I think, is going to be the only person on track at the moment with tires who's going to be able to do anything. The next person down the road who might have been able to do something is Ashton Crowder, but he's a whole 3 seconds off those guys, so it ain't happening, James. This is going to be, I think, between the 11 and the 88, or if a caution comes out. But right now, it's very spread out. It's going to be rare to see. It's going to be rare if we see caution here.
If we get a yellow flag, that's the key, and that will be the difference in this race. And to be fair, we do have a lot of lap traffic that the leaders are working through, so it might not necessarily be for position, but there's certainly plenty of obstacles that the leaders will have to clear in the next just under 30 laps here at Richmond, so it's not impossible. But I'd say you're probably right. It's not probable that we end up with a yellow flag to bunch everybody back up. So if you're Brandon Bowie and Andrew Freenars, or Andrew Freenars now because he's managed to get underneath Brandon Bowie and is trying to go grab the second position away from the 44 machine. But if you're either one of those two, it's on you now to work your way through this lap traffic and try and find a position. And an excellent job of Freenars there to use the lap car of Lionel Callisto as a pick and force the 44 back behind you. Freenars now up to the second position.
Yeah, and you should have seen that run that the 44 had on the 97. He basically shot like a rocket out of turn 2 and just couldn't get anything because, like you said, he used that 97 as a pick. So Brandon Bowie got a little bit of work to do to catch that 88. Meanwhile, up at the front, passing Sean Bounty right now, Dylan Jones having a phenomenal race, putting on the cruise control, trying to work around this lap traffic that's not really wanting to budge right now.
Not really wanting to get out of the way at all. Sean Bounty currently the one right in front of the 11 machine. He sits 2 laps down at the moment. Jones, I think, is just waiting for a good moment to get around him and get underneath him. Bounty, I don't think, is going to throw up much of a challenge once Jones gets there, but still a little bit of a gap back to the 11 from the rear bumper of the 34, and then a sizable gap back to the 88 of Freenars in second, who sits in a 1.6 second time buffer, which came down a little bit that last time by, but still a second and a half from Jones to Freenars, and then Bowie and Crowder third and fourth, about 8 tenths from the 88 to the 44, and then 2 seconds from Bowie to Crowder. So a very healthy gap between third and fourth at the moment, and then another 2 seconds back to David Comstock in fifth. So the front three are a little bit closer than everybody else, but they're all for the most part strung out once you get past Freenars and Bowie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing job done by all these drivers here who've been able to get through all this lap traffic unscathed for the most part, James. I mean, we're talking about 0.7 mile tracks. And on iRacing, if you aren't familiar with that, that usually means a lot of yellows. But these guys, after the little bit of yellow fever we had at the beginning of this thing, only 4 cautions this whole race. So you know what? Good on the drivers. We only have 3 cars off the track at the moment. Douglas White, I believe, is sitting in his pit stall. But apart from that, everybody else still out there making laps and doing an excellent job. A very clean race here tonight, James.
A clean race here, which is going by very quickly. All of a sudden, we're down to 20 laps to go here at Richmond. So I'm trying to see if Freenars has been able to eat into Dylan Jones's lead, and the answer is not really all that much. It's only come down 8/100ths of a second, which will most certainly not be enough. Though, to be fair, Freenars does have a little bit of lap traffic in the form of John Abbott that he'll have to navigate momentarily, so that might explain a little bit of why the gap hasn't come down all that much. But Jones has been in really, really good shape for a good chunk of this race and doesn't really have that much trouble in front of him in terms of lap traffic. It's really just Rod Flagg and Sean Boundy and Dwayne Vincent all running together. And he may get to Austin Cooper if we stay green, but it's just that trio that he'll have to work, I think, before he can run away and just try and run down the last handful of laps in the grid and go try and grab the checkered flag.
Yeah, James, and just trying to go through the field and see what all these drivers have, and it's not too much. People are just minding their own business and kind of spread out right now. But one battle that I see is the one of Tanner Tallarico and the 53 of Austin Coop. Austin Coop shooting off of that corner right now, but just cannot seem to get by that one machine. So he's trying everything. You can see the one running just a bit higher than Coop in the corners, and that's going to snub the run that Austin Coop gets off the corners, because you cannot make a pass on the bottom here. It's easier to make the pass on that top side, and that's what that one knows, because he's just holding the top side and basically holding that 53 machine up.
Keeping Coop backed up here, and say at this point it's all about putting in a respectable run. If he doesn't get a yellow, the chance to win and the chance to get in the playoffs is most likely gone for Coop. So all about trying to get a few points and just grab a few more spots and positions and try and go chase down the top 10, which is most certainly doable. Friend of ours, Gabe Wood, who you've heard a few times on LSRTV, sits in the 10th position at the moment, so he would be next for Coop. Can he find a way around Tallarico? But getting around Tallarico is becoming a very tall task, to say the least.
Yeah, it is, and Tallarico doing an excellent job, and I think Coop's starting to get a little bit sick of the one car at this point, because you've seen him all over the back bumper of that Enduro Engineering Chevrolet, and Coop gonna look to the inside that time. Not gonna happen, so this battle will not go away, so these two will continue to go at it. A fantastic battle put on by these guys towards the closing stages of the race here at Richmond Raceway, and Coop gonna jump to the inside. He's got a nose in there, maybe looks down there, but it's gonna be hard to make it happen, and I'm just in awe with this groove here, James, because this is fantastic. This is just fantastic, or just fascinating, I should say. Oh, actually, no, never mind. The contact's gonna get made. I was gonna say it was a fantastic groove being put down. A very interesting race this way has gone, and I kind of lost my words there. But either way, Coop just made contact.
The racing was so good that you couldn't even speak straight. But yes, I've noticed that too, that we've actually had a good amount of drivers slide up into that second group tonight. And I think that's all due to the new build, which has changed the dynamic track, as you mentioned towards the start of the broadcast, and has definitely changed the way the rubber builds up on this racetrack. So we've seen more racing side by side here at Richmond. It doesn't really matter all that much here, but I think of a place like Chicagoland, which really can benefit from a stickier rubber and a wider groove. We should see some excellent racing next week if this race is any indication.
Yeah, and you look at the 27 of Ashton Crowder. We've been talking about battles. Well, now Crowder on the back bumper of that 44 machine of Brandon Bowie. Bowie's tires have just fallen off here, James, and he has fallen all the way back. About 2 seconds was the gap a little bit ago, and now he's back on the back or on the front bumper of the 27 of Ashton Crowder, who's going to dive it in there. Oh, contact, had to get out of the gas there just a little bit to make sure that he did not wreck that 44 machine, but he's going to have the nose this time by. Gonna try to get by him on the inside, but the outside prevailing, gonna keep that 27 at bay as they cross the start finish line.
At bay for the moment, but for how much longer? That's the question with the likes of Brandon Bowie and Ashton Crowder as they try and do battle here at Richmond. And we're getting down to it too as well. Not too many laps left on the board. Working lap 175 at the moment. So, getting down to it. 6 to go now. Not too much time left for these guys to make something happen.
Yeah, great battle. Crowder gonna have a really good run on the inside this time. They're gonna run into the lap traffic. It looks like a Rod flag, so this won't be over quite yet. The 27. No, he is going to get it there that time, but not quite yet. Bowie continues to soldier on the outside. Now Crowder dives it in, and that could be job done unless Bowie can get the cut back. He's going to go for the undercut here out of 2. Not going to happen, though, this time. If he has anything in 3, that's the only shot he's got at Crowder before Crowder is going to secure that spot on the podium, and I think it might be a closed book at this point because Crowder's starting to pull away.
Really beginning to get away here. He's able to get through, I think, the center and corner exit in particular better than Brandon Bowie has in the last few laps, and you see that gap increasing ever so slightly. So really beginning to open it up. But at the moment, all about Dylan Jones, who does not have that much longer left to go. About 2.5 laps between him and yet another victory in 2017.
Yeah, trying to get that victory, get him into those playoff position and pretty much lock him in. But the 11 of Dylan Jones having a fantastic night, as well as the 88 of Andrew Freenars there running in second. Almost was able to run him down, just not enough time in that 88 machine to get up to him. Ashton Crowder, Brandon Bowie, David Comstock, how about that driver? Running about pretty much consistent, started 7th, running 5th, so a great run for the 42 machine as well.
Big run for the 42, but it is all about Dylan Jones, who has just had the best car in the field under green flag conditions and has a pretty easy drive here. Nothing too complicated left to come through turns 3 and 4 and pick up his 3rd victory of 2017. Dylan Jones wins the night race at Richmond in the 2017 RSR Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. His 3rd win of 2017. Once again, Andrew Freenars comes home in 2nd, and then it was Ashton Crowder and Brandon Bowie, and then David Comstock to round out your top 5. Good runs there by everybody at the front of the field.
Absolutely, and I have to think it's a little bit of a sweet win for Dylan Jones. His partner in crime, Dave Washington, not here tonight. Dave still in that area around Daytona that suffered a lot of damage from Hurricane Irma. So Dave, if you're watching, we're thinking of you. And for Dylan, it's got to be pretty cool to get the win as Dave's working on. From what I can tell, from what I understand, he's been okay for the most part. So Dave, we're thinking of you here, and we can't wait to see you get back in the race car pretty soon. And Dylan's got to be pretty stoked about this one.
A really, really tough weekend, I think, for a lot of people who were affected by Hurricane Irma and Harvey, too, as well, still, as cleanup efforts continue down in southeastern Texas near the Houston area. So thoughts are with everybody affected by both hurricanes, and hope for the best for all of the folks within those 2 groups. But as Dylan Jones celebrates, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back with our full field rundown, and we'll talk to our top 3 finishers here as you watch coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
When I was 16 years old, I was working at a Goodyear tire store, and my boss actually built an old dirt car, street stock Monte Carlo. Went with him one night, fell in love with it. It was a hell of a race, hell of a party, and a big fight afterwards. I was like, this is it. This is it for me. It wasn't long after that, I was driving an old 78 Camaro out of the weeds at that guy's farm. We pulled that thing out and made a race car out of it, and away we went. You know, I think a driver has more to do with the equation going back and racing dirt, whether it's a modified, a late model. You can do more with the race car. You know, the harder you drive it, a lot of times, the better it goes. You can crawl up on that wheel and feel like you made the difference at the end of the night. Asphalt car, you can't overdrive them. Well, that was the first thing that I had to learn right off the bat is, oh my gosh, I've got to discipline myself, not overdrive this thing, and that's how you get the most out of it. Truth be told, communicating the right information to your crew and your crew chief so they can do their job and make their appropriate adjustments for you to go faster and do your job is probably 90% of the game in our world. I've always loved late models. You know, my dream was to be a late model driver driving for a living across the country like Daryl and Don do that drive for me. I mean, that was, truth be told, that was my dream, you know. I always wanted a semi. I always wanted a stacker trailer with 2 hot rods in it and let's go racing. Let's take off with your buddies and go race and chase that dream. Never in a million years did I think it would turn into a Cup Series, and I actually have an opportunity to own 2 dirt late model teams. When you think of iRacing, you don't think of a video game. It's not. It's way above and beyond any of that. You know, dirt racing changes so much. The track changes so much. Being able to capture that, to, you know, experience all those details that surround dirt racing and make dirt racing what it is what makes iRacing so cool, because they did nail all of that. I knew when they came to our shop and scanned cars and went to the detail of getting that car right, I knew that it was going to be over the top, because it blew my mind just the work that went into making sure the car itself was legit. This sport has been around a long time. The competition can't be replaced, and that's what brings people back to the racetrack week in and week out.
Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series here from Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia, where Dylan Jones has his third victory of 2017 after a very, very strong performance all night long in the 11 machine. And now that we have come to the conclusion of the race, it's time to run through your full field rundown, which tonight is brought to you by the fine folks at Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. Jones comes away with the victory in that number 11 machine for Aegis Motorsports, and Andrew Farinars was able to finish second when it was all said and done. Ashton Crowder came home in the third spot, and then Brandon Bowie finished fourth. Those two were up in the top 5 all night long. David Comstock brings it home in fifth at the end of the evening. A great run for Justin Lisaby. Might be a season's best finish of 6 for him at Richmond this evening. Carl Shedd finishes in the 7th position. Chris Hurlow was able to bring the 87 home in 8th. Nelson Rivera used pit strategy to get to 9th, and then Gabe Wood with the 00 rounded out the top 10.
Yes, finishing 11th. Sorry, I was striking full work, Astro. 11th going to be Tanner Tallarico. 12th going to go to Austin Coop. 13th to Mr. Dwayne Vincent. 14th will go to Nick Silver. 15th to Corey Wolf. 16th to Sean Casto. 17th going to go to Jason Cameron Jr. A good run for the rookie in RSR. 18th going to William Hale. 19th to Lionel Kalisto. And rounding out your top 20, Shane Ewing in the 32.
Quick note on Dwayne Vincent, because we didn't say much about him during the broadcast, but he got a penalty on pit road for driving through too many pit boxes early on in the race and never quite got the chance to make up the top 10 car that he had at the beginning of the race. So that's why he's a little bit down the running order from where you figured he might have been if you had been watching from the beginning of the broadcast. But 21st on the grid at the end of the night was the 34 of Sean Boundy. Last car 1 lap down was Ross Cato in the 12 machine. He finished 22nd. Doug Roth was 23rd in the 43, and then Rod Flagg, running with the Washington State colors and the Pontiac decal on the front of that machine, finished 24th this evening. John Abbott of the Nesquik machine was able to come home in 25th. Bruce Pearson in the Advocare machine, the 2 with the Stroh's Light throwback colors honoring Mark Martin's career back in the day, finished in 26th. And then these drivers all out of the race early. Douglas Wyatt, Chris Murdoch, Randy Yoakum, and Giovanni Bramante round out 27th through 30th, respectively. And that is your full field rundown, brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. And as we close the book on the rundown, we turn to the driver who gets to celebrate in victory lane, and we get to talk with Mr. Dylan Jones, who just had speed in spades tonight. And I don't know if it was just you taking to the new build very quickly. I don't know how much time you've had with it. So I guess we'll start there. Have you gotten a chance to play around with this new build yet? And did that help a lot tonight? Did it matter at all tonight? Or was it more just you really liking this track and this track suiting your driving style? Because we know that you have a penchant for running well at the short tracks on the sim. And here in particular has always been one of your better ones.
It was probably a little bit of everything. I put in some good practice this week, try and get a feel for new build changes. It's not a lot different besides the track. Obviously, with the new track changes, that changes a lot. I mean, especially at the end of the run there on old tires, I felt like the track would change for me every other lap on which line would be the better line to run. I'd run low one lap, and next lap I'd lose time, move up, gain some time back. But we were just lucky with track position tonight. I feel like we took out those 2 tires on that one caution and put us out front, and the Aegis Ford Fusion just we never really looked back.
You've got 3 wins now on the season going into the playoffs. That puts you behind, I believe, only your teammate Dave Washington and David Constock. So it's Dave, and Dylan, all the D names up at the top of the pylon when it comes to the number of wins this season. But to be right up there near them with them, to have this bonus points going into the playoffs, which begin next week, how big is that mentally for you and this 11 team?
Oh, it's always great to head into the chase with momentum, especially going to Chicago. It's actually a track that I like, and it's definitely going to be interesting with the new surface model and what happens there. But getting a win here was huge for me, especially some Dave being out tonight. He's got a new indoor swimming pool, so he couldn't race tonight. But Andrew probably was the fastest car, obviously, at the end of this race, but he made a little mistake when he caught us.
And I think the only real time you came under threat once we got under green flag racing was when Bowie came down and short pitted everybody there on that final pit stop. So was that something that you noticed and were worried about, or was it one of those cases where you felt like you had the pace to go get him and you just needed the race to play out under green for a few laps?
Yeah, I don't know the distance between me and Bowie when I came down to pit, but I knew I had a fairly decent lead, so I felt like he had to pit pretty early to get the lead he did on me. So I figured his tires had to fall off way earlier than mine, and they did. So that was part of the strategy. I wanted to stay out a little bit longer than everyone and try and keep the tires on it longer.
And we know there are a lot of people that make your operation happen. So before we let you go, we'll give you a moment to give your shout outs, your thank yous, your acknowledgments, and let everybody know who makes it happen for you in this number 11 team.
Oh, Julio for putting this Aegis team together, Andy Kessler for being everyone's spotter up there. Usually he's Dave's, but he was kind of helping everyone tonight. Ross, Carl, Daniel, Gio, and the good run for Andrew tonight.
Well, thanks for the time, Dylan, and we'll see you on the beginning of the road to the fight for the title that you're going to put on next week. Looking forward to seeing you and everybody else begin to fight for it in Chicago.
Yep, thanks.
And from the race winner, Dylan Jones, we slide over to Cisco Scaramuzza, who can move the cameras and move the mic and get everything in position to talk to your runner-up, which is the number 88 of Andrew Farinas, who's standing by here momentarily.
All right, well, I have caught up with the driver of the number 88 of Andrew Farinas, and Andrew, really good run for you today. You charged through the field, back through the field once we had those green flag pit stops, but after that kind of yellow fever that started us off, it really spread out this race, and we talked a little bit about it with Dylan, but talk us through kind of what was your perception of the race as it went on with the track being the way it was?
Really when we had that last pit stop, Dylan took 2, and I thought the tire wear would, we ended up taking 4. I thought the tire wear would fall off a little more, be able to catch him, but Dylan's a great driver, and he made those 2 tires work. I was able to start catching him before those green flag pit stops in the long run, and I was thrilled to see after those pit stops we got another long green flag run. Started running him down. I thought I was going to get to him, but I just got loose off a 2 there.
Well, you still were able to put on one heck of a run here. You and your corporate teammate, as it is, did a very good job. And I know this means a lot to you guys, especially with Julio having to brace for Hurricane Harvey, and then Dave having to brace for Hurricane Irma. I'm sure it feels good to have a good organization day in the whole group.
Oh yeah, I was talking to Dave late last night. I was actually on when he lost his power, so thoughts and prayers with him. Really wish he was here. We really missed that voice on TeamSpeak. And Julio, just best owner in here, and thoughts and prayers with him. Just good to get a 1-2 finish for all those guys.
Well, I'll give you a chance. Sponsors, shout-outs, anyone else you want to say hello to before we let you go here?
Yeah, I got to say thanks to LSRTV. Do a great job broadcasting. All the fans come out every week and watch us. All my friends, Dan, Sean, Steve, my dad, just all my friends, my family. Everybody on this Aegis team, Aegis Powered Forts team. Everyone from Dave, big help this week. Daniel really helped me out for tonight. Andy puts these paints on. Gio ran a lot of practice laps. Just everyone on this Aegis Power Tech team. Can't say thank you enough to them.
Well, that's Andrew Freenars. He gets it done. Finish the second here, Andrew. We'll see you in Chicago.
Thanks so much. Look forward to the chase.
That's the driver who finishes second. Another guy locked into the chase. And, well, Mr. Pike, I'll hand the mic back over to you because you've caught up with the newest member of the playoffs. And I know I said chase once there, so I apologize for that. The playoffs. But we just talked to Andrew. Ashton Crowder's here. He got it done at Darlington. Another good run for him. He finishes third tonight.
A big run, I think, for Ashton Crowder, who has had moments where he's had the speed. He hasn't quite had the finishes to go with it here, but I think the big key to note, especially within the last few weeks with the win at Darlington and now this solid run tonight, is that Ashton, things seem to be headed in the right direction at the right time, and now you're really beginning to rack up a lot of results that reflect the pace that you've had in this series. So have you changed your approach or switched up the way you've attacked these races, and has that made everything click a little bit better, or is it just kind of doing the same old and just making sure everything stays in one piece and not really change much of anything, knowing that you had the speed and the ability to be there all the while?
Well, I don't think I've changed really my plan going into the races. Just tried to be a lot smarter with what I do, plan 4 or 5 laps ahead, and just try to save tires as much as I can. I had really big problems with that tonight with the dynamic track. I just haven't figured that out yet, but yeah, I just go into the races the same way that I have been doing for the past year. So I've been running leagues and just try not to make dumb moves when I get out there, and just trying to keep it in one piece.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the new build? Because we know a lot of drivers didn't really know much about it tonight, didn't really know what we were going to expect, and looks like we saw a wider groove than what we've seen in past builds here on the sim. But the drivers who are on track know it best. So what did you see in build 3 for 2017 that was different compared to build 2 and some of the past builds you have here?
Honestly, man, I could go on about this build for hours. It's so good. Like, the track really starts to come in. Well, in here, since we had an hour practice session and then a qualifying session, we could go to the top from the start. But if you go to the top, your right front starts burning off, and then your right rear starts burning off after that. But yeah, the track has changed so much since last build, and iRacing have really done a tremendous job on changing it and making it how it runs in real life in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series, and even last year in the Pro Series. It's really changed a lot. It's really gotten better, and if we really wanted to, we could run the wall tonight, and that's something we could only see Matt Busa do a year ago. So it's really changed. It's changed for the better, and hopefully they don't change it too much after this, because I really do think it's perfect how it is.
And with this new build, what do you expect going into Chicagoland next week? We know that track has got the ability to run around a little bit and had in past builds the opportunity to run too wide, but I get the sense we'll probably see more of that next week. Would you agree, or do you think we'll see something different?
It's gonna get a lot more crazier than has been in the past. We've been doing peak testing all week, myself, Tanner Tallarico, and in practice, like just 2 cars after about 20 laps, we're already able to run dead at the wall and cut it down off exit and get just the best runs possible. So I think you put 30-40 cars on that track, definitely going to get rubbered up really quickly. It's going to be crazy. I would expect some 3-wide, passes from the top, kind of like what I tried to do tonight, but passing on the bottom. But I think at Chicagoland it's going to work a lot better.
And as we always do, here's your chance here before we let you go to get your shout outs, your thank yous in there. Who makes it happen for you in this 2017?
Well, first off, I want to thank Kyle Barnes for, being, I guess, a race director, just really enforcing the rules, just keeping it black and white how it should be. Haven't really seen that, not knock towards anybody, but we really haven't seen that in the past, and he did just a great job with adminning tonight and actually gave people the penalties that they needed. JDR Graphics for not getting a new paint scheme this week, but should be seeing a new paint scheme at Chicagoland. But he did put the windshield banner on for me, so I appreciate that. Real picks, obviously, and Team the Drill Spill. Hoping to have a good night tomorrow, and just shout out to all of them, Tanner Tallarico, Justin Listenby, and somebody who actually was helping with us tonight, Gabriel Wood, which does some commentating broadcasting with you guys, and you guys for putting on the great broadcast and running this league the way it should be now, and just putting on a great show.
Well, as always, thank you so much for the time, Mr. Crowder, and we will see you with the new paint scheme in 1 week's time as you begin your chase for the championship of the playoffs.
Thanks, James.
So there's Ashton Crowder for you, and there's your top 3 all wrapped up, and can tell you now, because it is time to announce your winners of the throwback paint scheme competition from Darlington a week ago. If you haven't had the chance, go watch that broadcast on the YouTube page. LSRTV is the channel if you're trying to figure out what to punch into that big search box. But we ran a throwback race, just like the Cup guys did at Darlington, and we had a very, very healthy smattering of retro paint schemes, and your top 3 finishers were as follows. In third place, running the Wendell Scott tribute, was Sean Boundy, the sort of almost a metallic powdery blue and white 34 machine, but honoring one of the first African-American drivers to make his name in NASCAR. Second, honoring Bill Elliott's Batman Forever paint scheme, was the 24 of Nick Silver, and in a nod to Bobby Allison back in the 1970s, and also a near carbon copy of what Tony Stewart ran in last year's Southern 500. Your winner of the favorite throwback paint scheme competition is the 12 machine of Ross Cato, who carried the golden and red Coca-Cola colors around Darlington 1 week ago. So a big thanks to everybody who participated, who voted, and a big thanks to everybody who put together those paint schemes to make that show so interesting. And now that we've wrapped all that up, Cisco, it's time. We have our 16 drivers. It's time to go to Chicagoland and begin the fight for the championship as the playoffs begin next week.
Absolutely, and the good thing for me is, James, I can actually flash up the graphic because that really hasn't changed. So let's take a look at, James, why don't we? Everybody who's going to be fighting for that 2017 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series Championship presented by Gary Mercer Trucking.
Going in the order of the playoff grid, David Washington and David Comstock lead the field in wins. They go 1 and 2 respectively into the playoffs. And then Dylan Jones in the third spot now with the victory, jumps ahead, I believe, of Daniel Everhart, who will also be there with 2 wins, I think. In the fourth position, Trevor Roppolo was able to win the season opener at Daytona to lock himself in all the way back in February. Andrew Farinar's got it done at Talladega after an exciting battle with Anthony DeVore in the spring to claim his spot. Carl Shedd was able to get a victory at Michigan in June to lock it up in the number 45 machine. Joseph Tice won at Kansas in May to get his spot into the playoffs. And Ashton Crowder, your most recent first-time winner in this season and in this series, won our race at Darlington 1 week ago to be the final man to clinch his way in on points. Nick Silver is the highest point finisher of those who do not have a victory. Dwayne Vincent was right there too, and it was close. I believe it might have been a 1 point difference that put Silver in ahead of Vincent as the 10 seed.
Vincent will get him because
or tied actually, because it was 1. Yeah, Vincent did get him, so credit to us. The graphic was pre this race, so us not necessarily being mathletes, we try to do the math in our head. Sometimes we fail, but Vincent and Silver right there together in on points, then Brandon Bowie, then Sean Casto, then Shane Ewing, and then Ross Cato. And Lionel Callisto was the last man in. And heartbreak for some of the folks that were on the edge there. Your Austin Coops, your Sean Boundies, Nelson Rivera, Anthony DeBarro, Roth and company. They will miss out on the playoffs here in 2017. But for those 16 drivers, very exciting, because it's really time to start running for a championship and time to make things happen.
Yeah, it absolutely is, James. And it all kicks off from 1 week's time at my home track, Joliet, Illinois, Chicagoland Speedway. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going back to the mile and a half. It's been a while, actually, since we've been to a mile and a half, like a normal kind of turn of the century one. But hey, you know what? Chicagoland's a lot of fun. It's got its own little kinks and characteristics that are a little bit different than anything else.
You think of the curve back straight away more than anything else, and the way that allows you to kind of arc out of turn 2 in particular. That can change the game a little bit and can make things interesting. So we will have everything for you that you need right here. LSRTV 1 week from tonight, 9:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is when we will kick off our coverage of the 2017 RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking Playoffs from the Windy City. But for now, we'll go ahead and conclude our coverage of tonight's broadcast from the Richmond Raceway. So, for my colleague up in the booth, Chris Murdoch and Cisco Scaramuza, who have both jumped in tonight and done their fair share, for Kyle Barnes and Doug Atkinson at Real Sim Racing, for Laura Lawson, DJ Lyon, and Evan Pasoko at LSR TV, I am James Pike. And before we go, one last mention of our thoughts, our best wishes to everybody affected by both Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, and to all of those who are remembering lost loved ones and lost friends and family on this September 11th, 2017. We at LSRTV are wishing for all the best for you as well. We sign off for now, but we thank you for watching tonight's broadcast, and we will see you 1 week from tonight in Chicagoland. Good evening to all of you. Take care.